Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Crystal. I am your hostess, Crystal, and this evening we are joined by the delightful Christina Crofts. Good evening, Christina, and how are you this evening?
Hi, Crystal. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on this program.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm very, very excited because I've seen you quite some time ago on Facebook and the things that you've posted about your music and playing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're very inspiring to me as a woman and a guitar player.
Oh.
Because there's not too many female guitar players around. I'm sure there's some, but certainly not that have the status that you do.
Oh, well, I'm glad that's the way it comes across. I mean, as far as to me personally at the moment, it feels like the world is dripping with really good female guitar players, but I guess they're on another level and usually overseas, and Australia does have some pretty notable female guitar players. So, but I'm happy to be considered as one of them, if that's so to be.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Christina, I'd just like to ask because, you know, it's always interesting to me. Females, it's mainly a male-dominated world, really, guitar playing and singing and guitar playing, and a female having her own band. How have you found that when you've started and the journey throughout time to now? Do you think that it's easier for women to break into the industry the way you have originally, or is it harder, or was it harder back then?
I think it's probably broader now and maybe a bit more acceptable. It wasn't when I started, it was a long, long time ago, but there were probably a lot less female players out there, but I didn't run into too much, I suppose, difficulty, or you probably will always meet guys and maybe even girls who are a bit on the threatened or jealous side and don't want to know about you, or the worst, most stupid thing that ever happened to me was I auditioned for a band and they said, I rang to audition for a band. He said, oh no, I couldn't have a female in my band, my girlfriend would kill me. So that was one aspect.
Isn't that interesting?
I thought, oh, okay, whatever. But probably the most annoying thing was the patronising assumption that you should just be in a girl band and don't try to play too well, just be a gimmicky and do, dress nice and do this and do that.
Right.
I took myself fairly seriously when I first started out and really wanted to be taken seriously as a guitar player, so that stuff really irked me.
Yeah. Did you find that kind of patronisation and that opposition, did that make you buckle down and work harder to become even better?
Yeah, it did. I was pretty much dedicated to learning. I probably, it takes you a while to get to where you are, like obviously, but I was auditioning originally for rhythm parts in bands because I didn't sort of have that much lead playing. And, but, there were lots of people that were totally enthralled with having a female guitar player in the band. So it was probably equally weighted, I think, as much as you got some, I suppose, jerks, for want of a better word, but and I had people that you'd audition with them and say, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm just way ahead of you on guitar, so, I don't think we can do anything together. That sort of
Oh, wow.
But, I was having guitar lessons from my late husband, Steve, back then in the early 80s. And, if I ever relayed any of those stories to him, because he was 150% committed to anyone being able to play. And he was actually very supportive of female musicians in general. So
that's wonderful.
He thought, it was just amazing. So he always just told me to tell people to just drop off if they, said stupid things like that. So
yeah. So he was your inspiration for becoming a guitar player, or did you want to do that earlier but didn't know how?
No, I wanted to do it earlier. Goes back to when probably I was really young. Like my first inspiration was in terms of guitar was Creedence Clearwater Revival. I was probably maybe about 11 or something when I would hear songs like Looking Out My Back Door. And I can remember asking my mum and say, oh, I love that instrument. What is that? And strangely enough, mum said, "Oh, I think it's a dobro or a slide guitar," and I thought, "Oh, it's so cool," And I was so into that band, and I fell in love with Green River and Born on the Bayou. For a 10 or 11-year-old girl, but that was my thing, swampy blues rock, and it was that wanted me to. So I would say John Fogerty is one of my earliest influences, but I didn't really actually, even then, didn't sort of equate him to being a guitar player as such, but it was just the music, and it all worked for me. And that's where and then probably more seriously, bands like Bad Company and Pink Floyd. Like I remember hearing the solo to Time, which is one of Pink Floyd's, whenever that was, back in the 70s, and I went, I don't know, it was just so passionate, and I thought, I don't know what that is, but I've got to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd actually forgotten that you're such a great slide player.
Oh.
Because I think that's what actually drew me to you originally, was that I watched you play slide.
Oh, wow.
And I thought to myself, wow, a woman can do that? Wow.
Yeah, well, there are. Yeah, but I mean, like, I suppose it's I don't know. I love slide playing. I just always have, but I love all guitar playing. But that's just something that kind of just became my thing, I suppose. Like it's often what people take most notice of when I play.
Yeah. Oh, look, I absolutely love it too. Can I do it? Not really. But it's one of my favourite things as well. So how did you get your start? Was it through your late husband, was it? Well, in music, in playing for audiences and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, before that I dabbled, and I had my own, I'd bought myself my Fender Stratocaster and didn't know what I was going to do with it because I was evolving. This is as I was getting older, obviously, and I could play. I always had a pretty good ear for music, and I could sort of watch. When I was a teenager, I used to just watch what people are doing on TV, and I'd try and shape the finger style, and I'd work it out and play chords, and sort of had, I don't know, some instinct, I guess. And then I hadn't really sort of been around any other musicians. So by the time I met Steve, then I was really wanting to, sort of crack on and work out how to play lead. He sort of set me on that path. And, I mean, I was always fairly motivated to get out and audition for things, even though I didn't feel like I was very well equipped. But he just said, just go out and audition. So I was playing in lots of bands in the early 80s in and around Sydney, and always just auditioned for rhythm parts to begin with, and then just one thing led to another, and I was in a band and he said, I think I'm a perfect rhythm guitar. He said, I'm best rhythm guitarist, so you play lead. And that was where I thought, oh, okay, I'll try, and sort of started dabbling that way and just picked up experience over the years, I guess. But
yeah. Did Steve teach you like some kind of theory, or had you learnt theory before then?
No, I hadn't learnt any theory. I sort of knew what the notes of the guitar were, and I knew what chords were, and the logical things about relative minor keys, and sort of that was just kind of. I've got it. Annoyingly, I've got quite a good ear, so my ear always cheats, and I start looking at music, and I forget to look at the music and start following the ear. So then I look up to on the page. I go, it's a discipline. But I can't really read. I did learn, like Mel Bay guitar method for a little while, so I sort of started, and that was okay. But Steve just taught me scales and stuff, and sort of how to work around what the chord structure of a song is, and that's what I really wanted to know. So as soon as I knew that, I thought, this is it. This is where I'm off and running now. So
yeah, how important do you think it is for any guitar player to be doing scales?
Oh, well, look, it's all part of the whole thing. So I think if you can't work, I mean, like I say that lightly because I look at people who can play every scale known to mankind, and that style of playing is not my thing at all. Like fast and furious scale playing and up and down the neck. Like I appreciate the skill, but it's not how I play. I'm sort of into bending notes and getting good tones out of things, but scales are really important. It's all, all that stuff's vital to sort of, once you understand at least the basics of how that all works together with your chords and stuff, well, it makes more sense, and then you can sort of but yeah, I mean, I can't rattle off to people, or, the Lydian scale and this, that, and the other, but I know what I'm doing, but I don't always know why it works, which
Yeah,
is,
right. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So now your guitar, I've seen you have one that's quite road worn, and the same as your amplifier. Now, to me, the Vox is it.
oh, the box is it. It's
I
definitely.
mean, I can't lift it, but it's it. It's an AC30. I cannot lift it.
Oh my gosh, I've been lifting that AC30 of mine up and down stairs and doing God knows what for
You
years.
must have some good muscles then.
Well, careful now. I'm getting a bit older in life, so I mean, it's heavier now because I put Celestian Vintage 30 speakers in it years ago, so it actually gained weight after that. So I can lift it up off the ground and into my car, so that's the most important thing. But I don't try to carry it upstairs anymore like I used to when I was young.
No. So that's an AC30. You have a Vox AC30?
Yeah, I got lots of things. I got
Yeah,
lots,
you've got lots. So,
yeah.
tell me, is the Vox your favourite?
Well, it is my favourite. It always was my favourite. I've been playing the Marshall for a long time and practicing with Steve's old Fender Vibrolux, but I'm not a fan of Fender amps. God forgive me for saying that, because I know it is, and like I'll be crucified for saying such a thing. Well, but I just don't. Ugh, I don't like them. They're not my thing. I'm more into the British, sort of Marshall boxes.
No, I totally agree with you too. Like, there's some Marshall and Fender amps around here, and I'm just like, yeah, they don't do much for me, but give me my Vox, and it's like, yeah, that's the sound. And the Vox paired with the Gretsch, Gretsch guitar.
Yeah.
What more can you ask for? Now, so you have your Fender, so you still have the original Fender that you purchased when you were younger?
Yeah, I do. I bought that in 1982.
Cool.
Actually, funny, I still got that one. It's kind of what I call now the green guitar. I've got Steve's, the old really road-worn one, which belonged to Steve, the 72 Strat, which is just the best guitar in the entire world. And then there's a blue D Strat, which was his as well, so that's a 1980, and that's tuned to E generally, so that's one of my side guitars. And my own guitar, the original green Strat, that I usually use for A tuning, but they're both really, really super heavy guitars, the two bluey green ones, and so that's largely why they're better to be delegated to slide, because they're heavy if you're singing all night and, wear you out kind of thing. So
yeah, so what would they be made from, do you know? Because I know most Fenders are made from alder or swamp ash.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think they're ash. But they're very,
right.
very heavy. They're beautiful. But when I bought my Fender Strat, I bought it from Gaslight Music back then, and it turned out to be one of the International Series guitars. I didn't even know that until recently, which was a release of Fender guitars that they released at that era in all sorts of bright colours, like that blue, and the one I've got is actually Maui blue. Faded to green now, so and there was like a yellow one and an orange one, so that was an interesting discovery because I had no clue when I bought it, but so it's sort of a bit rare, but it's a beautiful guitar too, but it's very bright, like nearly takes your head off. So it's
And does she have a name?
Strangely not. I've carved Steve's name into that before we got married, so it could be it's a tribute to him, but I don't really name them. People ask me that too, but I just think, I don't know.
And have you got a lot of guitars besides the ones that you've kind of that's come from Steve?
No. I've got Steve's mahogany Telecaster that he used to play when he was, because the Strat, he bought that Strat that I play, the road worn one, he bought it in 1972 new when he was about 14 or 15.
Oh wow, yep.
So I paid $400 for it back then, and he played it, along with other things. But he played that for most of his gigs, I guess, for a while, and then he recorded on it in the Bombers and Black Cat Moan, and then I don't really know why, but he ended up buying this Telecaster, and he bought it from Rory O'Donoghue, who since passed away, but he loved the Telecaster. He was really, and I mean, it's a really rocking guitar, but I just don't get the sound out of that. Like it's fun. I don't play it because it just doesn't feel right. I'm not a Telecaster fan either. I know they're great. I'm used to Strats, so I like the weight of a Strat and the way it feels. And Tellies are sort of heavy on one end and they don't feel right to me. But
yeah, now it being mahogany, would it be even heavier?
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. It's not as heavy as the other Strats that I play for slide guitar, but it is pretty heavy. But I used to always just play my original own Strat, and then I don't know, one day back in the 90s when Steve was out teaching and I had to go for a rehearsal or something, and before I went to go, my guitar, something went wrong with the electrics in it or something, and I was panicking, and he said, "Oh, well, why don't you take the old Strat?" And so I took that and played it, and I don't know why I'd played it before, but it was like all the pennies dropped, and I just went, "Oh my God, this is the best guitar. It's just built for my hands. It's got a better neck on it than anything else. It's got a nice thin neck." Mm-hmm. And the weight of it's beautiful, and it's so much soul in that guitar. And I thought, and he used it as a spare guitar, so he wasn't fast. So I'd been playing that guitar pretty much as mine since about 1996.
Oh, wow. Now, interesting. Were you successful in that audition?
I cannot remember. Might have been a rehearsal.
Rehearsal, yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so cool. So, so Steve had a couple of bands of his own, and they were the Bombers and the...
Oh, Black Cat Man. They weren't his bands. He was in those bands.
Oh, he was in those bands, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, he's in lots of bands. Like his earliest band that people might know, I didn't know him when he was in these bands, but he's in a band called Topaz, which was on...
I've heard of those, yep.
That band. Really early on, and he had a song on Countdown and stuff, and then I mean he was in a band called Intermission with a friend of his called Hillary, who was a great singer back in the day, and they did lots of club work and stuff, and he was like everyone else, he was teaching guitar and playing in whatever gigs he could get, and then he was in a band called The Ideal Husbands, or Fandango actually, I think it was, with Bob Spencer in the 80s, and lots of how the bands always morph and become other things and branch off. And he ended up in Black Cat Moan, which was like a bunch of him and his musicians, Wayne Jury on vocals. And I don't know if you know Wayne, but he lives in Melbourne now, but he's an awesome singer.
Yeah, I've heard him, yes.
Yeah, so that was the genealogy of that band, and Peter Heckenberg on drums, and so Peter Heckenberg and Steve ended up in the Bombers, and the Bombers was formed by Alan Lancaster and John Brewster. So and the Angels. So that but the Bombers was my favourite band.
Now, that being your favourite band, however, you had have a very successful band of your own.
Well, are you talking about what I'm doing now or previously? Or, I mean, it sort of morphed into one thing anyway. I started off, I was always in other bands. Like I was in lots of bands, obviously, and as a guitar player, and, didn't have any desire to sing or, whatever. But I really just got kind of jack of doing songs that the singer wanted to do. I'm going to do any songs that I want to do.
So you've formed your own band?
Pretty much, yeah. So that's how that came about.
And that's Crofts?
Yeah, it was originally Crofts Town Traffic, a silly play on the Jimi Hendrix song, obviously. Did it spoke and then it stuck, and it's a pain in the neck to try and explain it to people.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you this question because I know that you went over, is it the Netherlands you went to, or where you're from?
No, Norway.
Norway, sorry. Yeah. Now, I know you took a guitar with you. How does it travel?
Oh, look, I don't part with them. I took 2 guitars. Like I like to make my life tough. That's all I can say. Make it as tough as possible. But look, because they're so precious to me, and because I really hate playing other guitars, like, because they're so, I don't know, it sounds I admire people that can just walk up and pick up a guitar and go, oh, this is fine, this will do, but that's not me. My guitars are set up and I need them to be my guitars for me to play them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to part with them, and I thought what I do is take the necks off them, and I just take them on board in soft cases, wrapped in as much bubble wrap and stuff as I can work out.
Right.
It is stressful and it's really hard work because they're very heavy even out of their cases, and when you're running through airports and trying not to miss things, and you've got it's terrible. A backpack on you and two guitars, and getting through customs and screening every time you get on and off a plane, it can be problematic. But
have they ever thought that it was something other than a guitar in your bag?
no, they don't. It's not like that, but because my guitars have got preamp switches in them and stuff like that, a couple of times they've got a 9-volt battery under the strap. But when I went to America, when we did that Memphis thing earlier this year, I took the batteries out because I thought going to America, they're much more sort of
strict.
Yeah, they're quite frightening going through customs over there. You feel bad, but I took them out and I still got pulled apart. But they just, I don't know, they just like to make your life hard, I think. And
so the guitars survived the trip. They go all back together the right way.
Miraculously, they do. It's a stress in itself, wondering about that stuff. Because, but you got to weigh up the stress because there's no way I'd trust that to the belly of a plane.
Oh God, no. So let's talk about the Memphis trip a little bit. Can you tell me or tell the listeners how that all came about, please?
Well, it was a random thing last year. It was the Blues Challenge is what it is, the International Blues Challenge, and I've never actually applied to do it in the past, and for some reason it just struck me, and I found out on the last day before the entries closed last year that it was on, and I just got a brainwave and I called the bass player and drummer and just said, are you guys interested if I put in an application? So we did it, and there weren't many bands in the competition, so we did win the Sydney leg, and we got to go to Memphis, but it was fun. It was awesome, a really exciting time.
Absolutely. And how did you find playing with other international blues players?
Well, it's all very full on and competitive. So, look, I went over there with the greatest of hope, but just knowing full well that we are not that kind of blues band. But, you go there and you think, you never know. And they all say, oh, judges might want this on one day and that on another day, so just do what you do. So we did what we did, and it went over well. We had a great time playing, but lots of the other bands take it really seriously, and they're all dressed up to the nines in their, looking like blues artists from the 30s or something, and it's amazing. There's just so many acts over there, and it's great to see all the different things that are going on. But we were probably the different ones because we did my brand of blues rock, which is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Played slide guitar, and we got some good score, like in terms of comments and feedback from the judges, but we didn't get through to the finals. So but we played about four shows while we were there. But
that's cool.
Really
well,
good.
They're missing out because, Australian artists, we're just as good, if not better than a lot of international artists.
Well, Frank Sultana won the solo, so at least that was a good thing. So,
yes.
Always got her start by, I think she won the solo category over there whenever that was, years ago. But, he's probably more authentic in what they're looking for in that regard anyway. But, yeah, it was a really good night. We seeing the other Australian bands was really good as well. The guys from Adelaide.
Yeah.
I think what are they called, Sun Bears or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a great band. So,
right.
A lot of people in their band. And
did you tour around at all while you were over there, or did you just went for like that section?
Yeah, we just, because it's winter there at that time of year too.
Hey.
January, so it's freezing, and we got snowed in and iced in, and we missed our flight back and got stranded for a week, which wasn't any fun.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading that. Yeah, gee.
That was miserable, but anyway, it felt like we might never get home, but yeah, we none of us had the time really to go off traveling, and it would have been.
Yeah. So you play the guitars, and do you play any other instruments?
I play a bit of piano accordion.
Okay, yeah.
But not Zydeco. I just being of Norwegian and German descent is probably a good reason. It's in my genes.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But I love the accordion. People say, "Oh, how can you admit to that?" And I think I don't care. I am who I am. I love it. I think it's an awesome instrument.
Yeah, that's for sure, and it certainly takes skill.
Yeah, well, I don't play it like I'm not a professional by any means. It's just Mum could play a bit. She loved the music and she taught herself to play accordion. And then when I was about 10 or 11 or something, I wanted to learn and she showed me and, can play a handful of songs. But I pick it up once in a while just to play it and remember my mum usually.
Oh, isn't that lovely? That's really lovely, actually. Yeah. Really lovely. So you play slide on your Strats?
Yeah.
Do you have a dobro at all?
No, I bought a cheapish one probably, I don't know, a while ago, probably 10 years or so back, and as try as I may, I didn't like it. Like I'm a funny animal because I don't like acoustic guitars.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I know what everyone's going, this chick's a maniac, but I just look. I love I like listening to it. I love like Hawaiian slack guitar music, and I like Ian Moss playing. He can play anything, but like he can play acoustic guitar, but I don't have the desire. Like I think I know what I like, and this is what I like, and it's got to be electric, and I like a band.
Well, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. And you really got to do what makes you feel joy too.
And that's it. That's what it's like. And I can't pretend to be something other than I am. And I don't, everyone says, oh, but you should, and you could do this. And you're like, oh, yeah, but I like cranking it out, and I love tone, and I like electric guitars. You don't get that out of.
Yeah. And so do you, I didn't lose you there. No, I didn't. So you said you're not a singer. Have you ever tried singing?
Oh, I sing. I do sing, but what I meant was when I formed that band, I had not sung before, and I had.
Okay. Yep.
So, I definitely don't have some big, powerful blues mama voice, but there again, it's sort of like over the years when your confidence takes a bit of a beating or something, and you get the brainwave to try someone else in the band. Like somebody said, oh, why don't you get this guy? And it's a really good singer that Steve knew. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't feel right. It's just because my music is my music, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I do. Yeah.
I don't know.
So what advice would you give to any young guitarist or middle-aged guitarist starting out?
Well, do you mean starting out as in learning or starting out?
Starting their journey with guitar or halfway through their journey, it doesn't matter. What would be your advice to newbie guitarists?
Well, I don't know. That's a tricky question because, I think obviously there's all the obvious things that you need to learn as much as you can and develop your ear as best you can because, but look, I think the thing that I learned really quickly when I was young, I started, you can see people on YouTube any 5 minutes just throwing their hair back and going, I can play anything, and they're mimicking every guitarist on the planet and playing solos note for note. And I think that's amazing. It's clever and it's very talented to be able to do that, but I think the sooner you realise that you are you and you need to develop your style and just go off on yours, I think stop trying to be someone else is probably what I'm saying. I don't want to like someone else. I want to be me, but I like the fact that all these other people in, so many different guitar players and musical styles have influenced what I do and why I play the way I play. But I'd love to think that I've got my own sound and style.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love players and people that you can be out somewhere, not even in the venue, and your ear picks up them playing, and it's like, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just your little stamp on it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So now the genre that you like the best would be blues rock, yes?
I guess so. I guess it's a melding of things, but it's, I try to describe my music, but I think blues rock is the most apt fitting description. I love blues, but I'm not interested in playing all the slow blues and the really, the what most people think of as blues. I like energy in my music, but I like a bit of Tex-Mex and that sort of flavour as well. So I think that, but yeah, I suppose blues rock is the probably most likely obvious thing that I do and what comes out of me.
Yeah. Have you got any funny stories from when you've been on the road?
The funniest thing that ever happened to me was my amp caught fire on stage.
Your amplifier, oh my
Well,
goodness.
a speaker caught fire. It was in the AC30.
Oh no.
That was a long time ago. That was when I was in the middle of a gig and I was playing some swampy solo. And I was looking at the audience and, you know, it was a dark room and it was just one of those pubs where you're down on the same level as everybody else. And I started to think, wow, that's a really good tone. Where's that coming from?
The amp's on fire.
I looked around, there was orange glow behind the grill cloth. I thought, oh, geez, we've got a problem. I stopped playing and went and tipped the amp over on its face and put out the fire.
Oh, my goodness. Did the audience think that was part of the show?
Everyone thought it was hilarious. Like, it was so funny, but we were only literally about 5 minutes up the road from home. So Steve went home and got me another amp and we kept playing. But it was
oh, what a good man. Short break.
Yeah. Just break and go home and get another amp.
Oh, wow. That's funny, isn't it? Oh.
It was a good one.
Yeah. And did it need much repair?
No, not really. It was just interesting enough that was a 2-speaker set that Steve had put. He had the same thing happen in his Fender Vibrolux. It was like he had 2 speakers. They're both Celestion speakers, but he had one of them caught fire in his own amp before we got married, like 3 years before or something. And he was at a rehearsal and it caught fire. And then lo and behold, there must have been a fault in both of those speakers because miraculously then I had the same thing happen to me with the other speaker that he wasn't using. Yeah, so I don't know why, but I don't know how many times people have speakers catch fire, but it was quite funny.
Actually, probably more than what you think.
Yeah.
I've had a few people say, oh, you know, the foldback caught fire or the amplifier caught fire, and it's just like, wow. Yeah. That's actually pushing them to the max, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was probably playing too loud as usual.
No, never. So now I know you play at home quite a lot. What do the neighbours, do they love it? I mean, I would love it personally if it was me, but do the neighbours ever comment?
Well, I've just moved probably 5 months ago to a townhouse now, so it's a very frustrating, different story. But my last house that I was living in, I lived there for so long, 17 years, and it was the best place. It was on a corner, and I could play guitar. Look, I mean, I don't play like at volumes that people would want to call the police, but my neighbours would say, oh, I heard you playing guitar. It was beautiful. But in 17 years, I never had anyone complain about it. And, you know, it's not like I'm cranking it all night long and having parties. It's just, but I could, and you couldn't hear it that much from outside the house anyway because of the house and the way it was set up. But I loved that house for that. But now I'm in this situation where I can't really play loud and can't play loud at all. So I'm trying to work out a room to play in and soundproof it a bit so I can just get back to a bit more relaxed practicing.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to suggest, maybe soundproof it. You can get soundproofing panels, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit of there's a lot going on, so it's definitely on my to-do list, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. What's the best live act you've ever seen?
Oh, well.
Australian or overseas?
Well, I mean, the Bombers were a great band back in the day, obviously, and probably I'm biased, but they were a sensational band and everyone that knows them agrees. So those gigs were special. But, I mean, Ian Moss is always so good. Like, you can't go wrong seeing an Ian Moss concert. He's just a sensational guitar player and singer and his band is amazing. So I've seen him a couple of times recently. And like I always go away feeling like I've had a religious experience after his shows.
Oh, wow. That's something special.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's just so good. So you can't really go. But there again, I like his electric concerts, not so much the acoustic
ones.
He's great at it, but, you know, it's more I'm an electric girl.
Yeah.
But and I love the band called the Mavericks from America. They're my favorite band in the world, besides, different bent altogether, but they've got about 8 people in the band, so they're like a country band, I suppose, alternate country band, plays a lot of, Tex-Mex and sort of Cuban flavors, but I mean, they get off on that Cuban stuff a bit, but I love that band, and I saw them. They've been to Australia twice, but they probably will never come back by the look of it. But they are a sensational band to see live, because they just literally radiate joy, and the musicianship's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's accordions and trumpets, and it's a great band, and that's another level to me.
Yeah, it's a big production, it sounds,
Yeah, just such a good band though. Like, it's got everything going on. I can't even describe it, but I was blown away when I saw them. So that, and just they're such a good band, so talented. Everyone in the band is just so talented, and they're so wrapped in what they do. It just, I don't like seeing bands where they look like they're miserable and they're sort of so wrapped up in their seriousness, but they're a very cool band.
Now, speaking about that band having a large number of members, how do you what is your, I guess, where do you sit? Do you like a bigger band or one that's just maybe 4 members?
Oh, look, I mean, I work as a 3-piece, but there's all sorts of things, good and bad, about it all, I guess. I mean, the bigger the band, the more can go wrong, I suppose, but the more, it's obviously more quality when you have more depth and backing and, layering of instruments. It's always a more raw event when there's only 3 people in a band, or 4. 4 is probably better than 3 in a lot of ways, because at least you can, like in my case, it's just, I could have a rhythm guitarist or I could have a keyboard player, but it's just never happened that way. Always, you're not getting paid a lot of money, but I guess, I've seen lots of bands. I love John Mayer, so that's another actually really good band live act that I saw. So he's always got, a few people in his band, so keyboards. And I forgot another one who was awesome, was Keith Urban.
Oh yeah, he is. He's quite good.
Oh, I love that concert. I saw that, I don't know, probably either just before or just after I got back from Memphis, and I've never sort of taken much notice of Keith, and my son likes him. He said, we should go, and I was blown away. He's so good.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. I guess too, having a more stripped back, either 3-piece or 4-piece, in my opinion, and what do you think, is that it makes you, one, it lifts you up, but it also makes you more precise in what you're doing, because it's stripped back, you can't hide.
Yeah, you can't. That's for sure.
So I think that in that kind of scenario, it actually makes you better.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think that's, and everyone loves a like what they call a power trio, but you're right. That's the obvious thing is you can't really hide, and it's easy and it works well for blues rock stuff. So I think that's its natural sort of progression anyway, is to, bass, drums and guitar and a vocalist. But I guess sometimes bands are only that, but they have another person singing. So they might have bass, drums and guitar and a 4th person singing. So they're just the same. They just got 4 people, but it's only the same amount of instrument
players. Yeah.
But I've been thinking about, trying out a keyboard player, because I feel like, could embellish some of the original songs that I'm doing and stuff like that too, because I often don't get to do all my originals because of, for lots of reasons, but because, you do put rhythm tracks and stuff down when you're recording, but then you things, and it would take a bit of the pressure off me, because, singing and playing guitar is hard work a lot of the time, especially if you're not a big, powerful sort of person like me. I'm a bit of a runt.
Oh, I wouldn't say that at all. But as a vocalist myself and playing guitar, I found it easier to do one or the other. But now, the last probably year, I've been playing and singing together, and my Lord, it takes some work.
It does. And see, I wasn't naturally gifted at that in the beginning either. I had to work hard to be able to sing and play. Interestingly, some rhythms are quite easy to sing and play, but if it's a bit of conflicting rhythm to what the vocal pattern is, it can be tricky.
Yeah, that's for sure. Have you ever had any vocal lessons?
Yeah, I have. I did have lessons here and there. So, yeah, I mean, I sort of know what I'm doing to some extent. I just don't have the natural big pipes that one would all hope to have. But, I mean, I sound like a 10-year-old when I talk, and I sound like a 10-year-old.
Oh, no. I think, look, you make the best of what you've got.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
you don't always have to have a big, powerful voice for blues, because very understated and sweet sound can be just as enthralling.
Yeah, well, I think I just come across more like a bit of a rock chick with a country rock sort of thing. Like my voice is a lot more country rock than it is blues, that's for sure. But then the music I play is not really blues, as in like, like Etta James or any of that sort of stuff. That's not what I do anyway. So, I mean, we crank out a lot of pub rock covers when we do most gigs, because you get into that territory when people start rocking out. So, and it works.
That's for sure. Yeah,
I love all that stuff too. But yeah.
So, oh geez, the question just escaped me. Isn't that funny? So you've recorded some music of your own writing.
Yeah.
So I think we'll take this moment, if you're willing, and we'll insert one of your MP3s in so the listeners can hear it.
Pushing me down my knees. It's
Wow, wow, wow. And that was Breakaway. Okay. So the other thing I'd like to ask you, Christina, is have you ever given guitar lessons?
Not officially. I have given a couple of people here and there a guitar lesson, like for, one when Steve was teaching, but when he was getting to the stage of his illness where it was a bit hard for him, there was a couple of guitarists that were coming for a little while. So he asked me to teach. There was a young girl that we knew who was only about 16 or something. She, Steve couldn't do it for whatever reason a couple of nights in a row. So I taught her for a little while, but it's hard to teach someone when you don't know your theory. So, I mean, I can teach people what I know and impart my knowledge, but if they want to learn notes and stuff, I'll probably find another guitar teacher.
But I think people go to teachers or click with other musicians if they like what they do. It's not necessarily about theory, but the feel and the way you construct your music is what draws them.
Yeah, well, interesting. I forgot too. It sounds funny, but I gave my vet a few guitar lessons. He said, I didn't know you play guitar, Chris. I'd love to play guitar. And so I went around to he couldn't play at all and he's left-handed, but I loaned him an old acoustic guitar so he could muck around on that. But he was a classic example of what you just said. Like, he was very happy just to show him how to play some chords, because he'd gone and had some lessons, but he found that it wasn't helping him. But I said, sometimes I think that it's sort of easier and it makes people feel better if they can just learn to play something straight away,
Absolutely. It kind of makes people want to do more, learn more, gives them the bug.
Yeah, it feels like they're making some progress if they can play 2 or 3 simple chords. And then I started just playing a little bit of simple lead guitar over it, and he was just going, oh, this is so good, thought it was amazing. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So what is up next for you or your band?
We have a couple of gigs coming up, but I don't know if you're aware, but I also play in Iheartradio and the Choir Girls. So there's a Cold Chisel band that's all girls that do some Cold Chisel songs. So we have a gig coming up on the 30th of September. But as for me, we're currently just trying to piece together. We got together and recorded some video of our songs for the purpose of trying to put together another promotional video so that we can start trying to try to get more work.
Yeah. And so that's coming up on the 30th of September, and where would that be at?
Piedmont Bridge Hotel.
Nice. And how do you find getting the gig? Are you the one who gets the gigs, or is there someone other? It is. It's, if you don't know people, it's a lot of ringing around and emailing, isn't it?
It is, and I've been playing this game for a long time. But I think since COVID, we all lost a lot of the regular gigs that we were doing. So everything fell apart a little bit after that, and I have not been able to manage to really get totally back on top of it. So, but it's not like I don't want to, but now I'm getting friends are ringing up saying, why don't you try this pub up at Newcastle? They'd like you. And, it's a lot of weirdness goes on in that part of the music scene as well. So that
it is. It absolutely is.
There is someone like a gig finder type manager, not someone to say, change me up and tell me what I have to be, but just you really need someone doing that for you to make it. It's hard to sort of sell yourself. That's what I find.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I know myself, it's a lot of, not so much legwork as to speak, but a lot of emailing, a lot of calling, a lot of making connections with the people that you're calling as well. And then, they just remember you because you're so persistent and they give you a call back.
Yeah.
So, it is one of those things, isn't it? And have you found that... and I don't want to go into the amounts of money, but have you found that pre-COVID it was more money or less money than now?
Oh, probably just the same. And as far there's in Sydney is always pretty terrible, if I can be blunt. But the gigs that I do, at least. But they're, no better than they were before COVID. It's not better, it's not worse. It just seems like it never changes year in and year out. Everything else changes except for that. But when I went over to Norway, then you realise how much different you are treated as a musician in another country, because it's next level in terms of just the respect and the way they look after their bands and the amount of money you get paid. It's like unbelievable.
Wow. And, I know we all play and sing because we
Yeah.
love it and gig because we
Yeah.
love it. But, it's nice to get that recognition of a few well-earned dollars as
Totally.
well.
You put a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You put
Beg
a
your
lot
pardon?
of effort into what you do.
Yeah, yeah. And so in Norway, so you mentioned about the respect that musicians are given. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I haven't known anything different than Sydney.
Yeah.
In that
I don't mean to
way.
bag Sydney. It's not all bad, but
No.
So it's just
different.
Well, like example of Australian gigs too, like some gigs, most gigs, especially not places like probably Lazy Bones and all those ones that are actual proper venues, which is great to see so many of those things popping up, because that's changing the game a fair bit, I think, and it's a good sign. But venues where it's basically a pub and they always have a blues band on Sunday night or whatever, 9 times out of 10, you're the person going in there. I have my own PA. You're doing all of that. There's never a PA, and if it is, it's not a very good one. And you have to go and move all the tables off the stage area and shift furniture around to bring your stuff in. And I mean, that to me, that stuff, and I've been doing that all my life as a musician, and you're playing underneath the TV with the sports going.
Yeah, I kind of don't like that myself. But yeah, the lugging of the gear, it's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
And saying that, some places, and I've only ever been caught once because I said to my husband, I'm never being caught out again with a venue's PA. Never ever. Couldn't hear ourselves.
Yeah, disgusting.
Couldn't hear ourselves. It was just like pointed the wrong
Yep.
way. Couldn't work out the mixing desk, which come out of the Ark with Noah. And I just said to him, I'm never, ever, ever doing that again.
No, I don't. That's what I mean about when I said earlier, I make life hard for me, but I will take everything of mine rather than trust that their PA is going to be adequate. Some venues, are like Lazy Bones has got an awesome sound system and a mixer. I do.
Yes.
Venues like that are great. There's other ones around that have got a smaller PA, but they're like Butcher's Brew is a great little venue too, and it's a smaller setup, but it's still more than adequate for the room. But a lot of, like you said, some of them, they are literally like 4 little channels on a tiny little mixing desk slider, and you can't even get a vocal above a band.
Yes, and that's a big problem too, I believe, because it's all got to be mixed so the levels are all equal.
Yeah, well, see, I've got a really good vocal PA. It's an oldie, but it's a good system, and it's loud enough for a reasonably big room, and you can still get a good sound quiet out of it if it's a smaller room, but it's good quality. Like, it's not, and it's easy to manage. You don't need, it's basic. Like, it's not having a sound guy up there and getting an awesome band, but it's just a vocal PA, so it's not like you're mixing all your instruments through it, but vocal sound above a band, what's the point? You can't, it's not going to sound good, and they just think, I think the frustration is that generally musicians and bands just seem to be the afterthought for most venues,
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So I gather in Norway and what about America as well? They're more state of the art, so to speak, or they take more care, would you say?
No, I don't. Definitely not familiar with too much what goes on in America, but I mean, I know people are playing a lot over there, but they have the lack of. They just play for what gets thrown in a bucket by the audience. Most of them, they might get $20 each from the venue, and then the rest is pass the hat around, which I don't like either. I just think, But
no,
the venues that we played in Norway were particularly like blues venues, and they, seem to sell it as a blues thing. It's a ticketed event. They have it's all seated and respectful, which is I'm sort of. that stuff is sort of a bit unusual to me too, because I'm used to playing more pub rock. So I sort of do like crowds where I'm up on stage and there's a crowd dancing, and that's the vibe I really love, like where people are into it. I like it. And I know it's that different level of appreciation where they're sitting and being, quite respectful and watching the band intently. But just the PAs were great. The musicians that I used over there were great, and they learnt all this stuff, like I hadn't met them even before I got there. So I just sent them a list of songs and MP3s, but all the venues were so accommodating, and the accommodation was paid for, and they a good fee, and they have a green room at the back, so they were looking after you and feeding you and making sure everything's right, and it's sort of not different.
Yeah, it must have been really nice to be treated.
It was
like
great.
that.
It was just like a shock. You think, wow, this isn't it?
And there's also something to be said too for, I think, the patrons of a pub or club when they're up and dancing, because it makes you lifts you up more
it
as
does,
well.
Yeah, and
the feedback and the energy. Yeah. It goes both ways.
Yeah, it's a learning curve when you start playing to more bluesy crowds that are seated, and that's I struggle with it, and it's not like I don't like it, but it's different, and it's that because like all these years I've always played to crowds where they're quite wild and rocking. Like I get a bit wild and rocking myself in these gigs, like.
Yeah. Oh,
that's what I like. Like, I mean, that I'm happy with that. I like it when it's going off.
Yeah. That's your groove there, Christina.
Yeah, I do have a fair bit of natural energy, so I'm sort of. If I was out seeing a band, I'd want to be up dancing and rocking. So.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing like live music, is there, of any genre?
No,
really.
That's right. It's great.
Yeah. Anyway, Christina, I thank you so much for being part of the podcast this week.
Thank you.
And once again, you're playing with, what is the band you're playing with on the 30th of September at the Piermont Bridge?
iHeart and the Choir Girls. It's Fran Little, she's got Big Mama in the Hangman Band. It's her. So she's a singer, but it's a great bunch of female musicians who play Cold Chisel songs, but it's slightly different to just playing Cold Chisel songs. It's very interactive. So Fran's great on stage, and she gets the crowd singing along, and sort of it's got a slightly audience oriented approach in that regard. So
wonderful. And is that ticketed, or can anybody just rock up?
I think anyone can just rock up. I think it's the Piermont Bridge Hotel is having some anniversary. I don't know how many years, but that is Saturday the 30th. I think we start at 5 till about 8. But I don't know whether it's 20 or 30-year anniversary or whatever it is. But anyway, that maybe there'll be other things on, but I better find out for sure.
Yeah. Is there a Facebook event that people can look up?
I don't know. Piermont Bridge Hotel probably has its own Facebook. And I'll find out. Can I give you that information later?
Yeah, sure. Just so the listeners can go, oh, that's interesting. I'd like to have a little look at, you guys and what you look like, and then they might come along. So we'll just see. We can post a link in the description of the show. So if there's one. So if not, that might be worth doing, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I was off guard with that because I wasn't thinking I'd be talking about that gig, but then I did.
Yeah, that's fine. Is there anything else you have coming up besides that gig?
Not before that one. After that, we have a gig at Piermont Bridge Hotel. I think we've got a November one there on a Sunday afternoon, and then we're playing at Miss Seeley's again in, I think it's early December, but I can give you those dates too if you like once I...
Yeah, sure. I think we'll get some links, or I'll put it in the description anyway.
Yeah,
later on.
Yeah. I've got a website, just ChristinaCrofts.com, but
well, I'll put the link up for that actually, so that might be really good. All right then, Christina. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with speaking with me. It's been really great, and I love your energy, and you're such a lovely lady.
Thanks.
And quite interesting, I think, and quite inspiring too.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for thinking of me.
Anytime. I'd love to have you back on sometime in the future.
Okay,
maybe.
Sounds good. We'll all gets out there into the universe, and I'll give you those links and stuff tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be fine. All right then. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, Crystal. Take care.
You too. Good
Night.
night.
Bye.
I think I'd like to play one more of Christina's tracks called Like We Used to. Wasn't that a fabulous track? That was Live Like We Used to, Christina Crofts. Well, that's the end of another interview for this evening. You have been listening to Conversations with Crystal, and I'm your hostess, Crystal. Next week, we have another fabulous guest. So until then, please stay happy, stay safe, stay awesome, stay cool, but most of all, stay tuned to this channel. Have a good night.